At my wedding reception, just after the toasts and before the cake, my sister stood up in her silver gown, swaying slightly with a glass in hand, and said, "This should have been me." The room froze. Guests chuckled nervously, some thinking it was a joke, others unsure if they should look away. But I knew that tone. That wasn't humor. That was history, bleeding into my happiest moment. My name is Rachel, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because have you ever stood in a room full of people you loved and realized only one person had the power to shatter everything? It wasn't the first time she tried to steal my moment, but it was the first time I came prepared. The ballroom lights shimmered across the crowd as whispers rose like smoke. She kept going, slurring stories about our childhood, how she let me have him, how she was doing me a favor showing up at all. I glanced at my husband. He was frozen too, hand still on his champagne glass, jaw tight. I didn't panic. I reached for the mic, took it gently from her hand, and said, loud and clear, "Check your phones." One by one, people pulled them out. Some laughed nervously. Some furrowed their brows. But then, gasps. Mouths covered. A bridesmaid dropped her phone. Because what I'd just airdropped to every guest in that room was a screen recording. Her texts. Her voice notes. Her plan. "I'll switch out the ring. He'll think it fell. We'll pretend it's a funny story. I want her to suffer for getting what was mine. Let her have the wedding. I'll have the last laugh." And there, one blurry photo. Her holding the groom's actual wedding band in her hand backstage, right before the ceremony. A final, chilling message. Watch what happens when she finds out it's gone. The room turned into a vacuum. Dead silent. Then someone whispered, "Oh my God, where is she?" We turned. She was gone. The mic was still in my hand. My heart was still racing. But my dignity? Untouched. Because I didn't just survive the ambush. I designed the trap. And now, my wedding was no longer hers to ruin. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Chairs scraped. Phones buzzed. People huddled in stunned silence, eyes flicking between their screens, and the exit she'd vanished through. The DJ had killed the music minutes ago. Even the waiters stood frozen mid-pour. I lowered the mic and walked off the stage, my heels sharp against marble, the hem of my gown sweeping like a blade. My new husband, Ethan, caught up to me in the hallway, face pale. She took the real ring?" I nodded. "She planned it for weeks. Maybe longer." His voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell me?" I met his eyes. "She's my sister, and I needed you to see her clearly, without my words clouding it. Because that's the thing about people like her. They're charming in public and vicious in private. And every time I warned anyone, I ended up looking jealous, bitter, unhinged. But screenshots don't lie. We found the dressing room empty. Her wine glass shattered on the counter. Her heels tossed on a velvet chair. The duplicate ring still sitting neatly on Ethan's finger. A fake. I picked it up, turned it over in my hand. "He would have believed it fell," I murmured. "She would have laughed about it for the rest of her life." The hotel manager appeared, breathless. "Should we alert security?" Ethan looked at me. I inhaled sharply, spine straight. "No." Let her run. Because what she didn't know, I hadn't just caught her stealing a ring. I'd caught her on video. She didn't know the florist's assistant was recording behind the scenes, capturing her whispering to the best man's girlfriend, flashing the real ring, laughing. And she didn't know I'd already sent that footage to 3 people. The hotel security, my lawyer, and our family group chat. So as she fled, barefoot, wild, humiliated, she didn't realize she was already trending. #runaway sister. #ring switch bride. #sabotage in silk. I walked back into the ballroom. People parted like ocean waves. I lifted the mic again. "My sister will no longer be joining us tonight," I said. "But don't worry, she left behind a performance none of us will forget." Laughter. Relief. Applause. Ethan came to my side. He took my hand, kissed it, and whispered, "You planned for everything, didn't you?" I turned to him, steady. "No." Just for the part where she underestimated me. By morning, the footage had gone viral. Everywhere. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram reels stitched with gasps and captions like, "She sabotaged her own sister's wedding and still thought she'd get away with it." Clips of her whispering, smirking, swapping rings, all in high definition. The comments poured in like rain. The bride's composure? Iconic. This is not sisterhood. This is warfare. Imagine being so jealous you sabotage love itself. And suddenly, people who had once praised my sister for being the life of every party were asking the same question. Who is she, really? Back at the hotel, I sat across from Ethan with untouched breakfast on the tray. He reached for my hand. "You okay?" I gave a small nod. "I'm not sad. I'm just finished pretending she ever loved me." Because what she did wasn't heat of the moment. It was premeditated cruelty, gift-wrapped in sisterhood. And this wasn't the first time. It was just the first time she got caught. She'd always been two-faced. The kind who'd compliment your lipstick while hiding the one thing she knew you needed. The kind who hugged you before a big moment, only to whisper, "Don't mess this up like you always do." Growing up, she was the sun. I was the shade. But that morning, as she trended for all the wrong reasons, I realized something. She didn't steal the ring because she wanted Ethan. She did it because I finally had something she couldn't control. Love. Peace. A future without her shadow. And she couldn't stand it. Later that day, the hotel's security returned the real ring. Found in a champagne flute on the top floor balcony. Thrown in last minute. Panicked. Pathetic. They offered to press charges. Said there was enough evidence to move forward with theft, harassment, and public disturbance. Ethan looked at me. "You sure?" I thought about the years she'd spent mocking my success, shaming my voice, dragging my name through whispers no one ever questioned. Then I nodded. "Yeah, let's do it." Because the difference between a dramatic sister and a dangerous one? Evidence. And I finally had enough to stop pretending this was family. She wasn't my blood. She was a lesson. And I was done repeating it. The arrest didn't happen with flashing lights or handcuffs on a red carpet. It happened quietly, 2 days later, outside her apartment, where she was spotted trying to sneak into an Uber wearing sunglasses and a hoodie like she was famous for something other than being exposed. A neighbor filmed the whole thing. "Is that the ring thief?" the woman behind the camera whispered, giggling. The clip went viral within hours. Again, this time with a new label. "Jealous sister tries to flee after wedding sabotage, arrested." I watched the video once, then closed my phone and exhaled. Not satisfaction, not joy, just release. Because this wasn't revenge. This was clarity, served cold and documented. Ethan came up behind me, arms warm around my waist. "Still want to go on the honeymoon?" he asked. I nodded, but somewhere quiet. No headlines. No family. We flew to the coast. No social media. No photographers. Just the sea, 2 glasses of wine, and silence that didn't need filling. But even across the ocean, the fallout grew. My parents called. Not out of concern, not to apologize, but to demand I drop the charges. "She's your sister," my mother hissed over voicemail. "You've embarrassed this entire family." I didn't call back. Because that word, family, meant something different to them. To me, it meant protection, loyalty, safety. And she had violated all 3. A week later, I returned home to a letter taped to my apartment door. No envelope, just a page, folded neatly, handwriting I knew too well. "You won. I hope you're happy. I've lost everything now, friends, followers, sponsors. I didn't deserve jail. You took it too far." No apology. No responsibility. Just blame with a bow on it. I tore it in half. Because she didn't lose everything. She lost the mask. The curated persona. The fake sympathy. The fragile little girl act she used to poison rooms and still walk away adored. And me? I didn't win. I reclaimed. My wedding wasn't ruined. My marriage wasn't broken. My life wasn't stolen. She tried to rip the ring from my hand and instead revealed the rot in her soul. And now I had peace. And a court date. Court was set for the following month. She hired a PR firm before she hired a lawyer.
Typical.
Her team released a statement to the press. This is a family matter that's been blown out of proportion. My client deeply regrets the misunderstanding and hopes for reconciliation. Misunderstanding? She orchestrated a heist at my wedding and called it a hiccup. But I stayed silent. No counterstatement. No social media posts. Because I didn't need to argue with a lie, I was bringing the truth to court. Her lawyer reached out for a deal. If you drop the charges, he said, she'll issue a public apology and return the ring, on camera. I told them to save their breath. This wasn't about a ring anymore. It was about every moment she stripped me of dignity while the world smiled at her. And I wasn't settling. The trial was small. Private courtroom. No press inside.
Just the facts.
I sat in silence while the hotel security footage played. She pacing, whispering, switching the ring, then laughing when she tucked it into her clutch. Her face twisted when she realized what was being shown. She looked at the judge, eyes wide. I was drunk. It was a joke. The judge leaned forward. You planned it days in advance. The messages are clear. I watched her shrink, just like she used to make me do, at birthdays, in classrooms, at every family table where she needed to be the center. Now, under oath, she had nowhere to hide. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't look at her. I looked at the judge. My sister didn't ruin my wedding. She revealed herself at it. And I won't carry the shame of her actions anymore. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I stood like a woman who'd finally dropped the weight of someone else's chaos. The verdict came swiftly. Guilty of theft. 1 year probation. Full restitution. Mandatory therapy. And an official restraining order, permanently. Outside, reporters tried to swarm me. Rachel, do you have a comment for your sister? I smiled faintly.
Yes.
I hope she finds healing. Just not at my expense. I got into the car, closed the door, and exhaled. This wasn't the end of the story, but it was the end of her hold on mine. Her silence was deafening. No new posts. No dramatic statements. Just a vanished presence where once she screamed for attention. The world had moved on, but I hadn't forgotten. Because healing doesn't come with a gavel strike. It comes in waves, quiet, slow, and often when you least expect it. I spent the weeks after the trial restoring parts of myself she had chipped away for years. I invited my bridesmaids over. We drank wine on the floor, shoes off, makeup smudged, laughing like we'd survived something unspoken. One of them handed me a gift. A framed print of the moment I stood on stage, mic in hand, saying, "Check your phones." Beneath it, they'd written in gold ink. The moment's silence became power. I cried. Not from sadness, but from recognition. For the first time, I saw myself not as the sister who survived her, but the woman who refused to play small. The fallout rippled beyond her. My parents stopped calling. They said I turned on blood, that I'd chosen strangers over family. But family doesn't threaten to destroy your wedding. Family doesn't weaponize your joy. And blood? Blood doesn't mean bondage. It means history, not destiny. Ethan saw the toll it took. So one night, he took me by the hand, led me to the rooftop, and handed me a tiny box. I know the ring drama made everything complicated, he said, so I had this made.
Just for you.
Just for now. Inside was a simple gold band. No diamonds. No flash. Just an engraving inside. Chosen piece. I broke. Because it wasn't just a ring. It was the reminder that love didn't have to be earned through pain. That family could be built on truth, not tolerance. The next morning, I donated the original wedding ring, the one she tried to steal, to a women's shelter charity auction. Let it carry new energy. Let it rewrite its story on someone else's hand. She'd wanted to stain it with envy. I chose to baptize it in freedom. And as I watched it disappear from my jewelry box, I whispered, "You don't get to haunt me anymore." Spring bloomed in quiet defiance. The same city streets that once felt like battlegrounds now felt like mine. Every corner, every coffee shop, every block near the courthouse washed clean of her shadow. Ethan and I took a weekend trip to the countryside. No phones, no noise, just air, space, and silence that soothed instead of threatened. One morning, he turned to me while we watched the sunrise from the cabin porch. "You've been quieter lately," he said. "Not the painful kind, the peaceful kind." I smiled, because it was true. I wasn't waking up bracing for another message, another crisis, another apology followed by another knife. Instead, I woke up with nothing missing. That's when the letter came. Old school. No stamps. No return address. Just my name in her handwriting. I stared at it for an hour before opening it. Inside, 5 lines. "You won. I don't expect forgiveness. Just know I never hated you. I hated how easy it looked for you to be loved. I'm leaving town. Don't worry, you'll never hear from me again." I read it once. No rage. No bitterness. Just the soft, hollow sound of emptiness losing its grip. I folded the letter and slipped it into the fireplace. Watched the flames erase her final words without needing to keep them. Because the truth? She was right. I was loved. Not because it was easy, but because I had finally stopped trying to earn it from the wrong people. When we got back to the city, I held a dinner.
Not a party.
Just 6 chairs. People who had stayed, stood by me, told me the truth even when it stung. People who never once asked me to make myself smaller for someone else's comfort. I raised a toast that night to the moments that broke me because they taught me what wholeness actually looks like. Ethan kissed the top of my hand. No applause. No cameras. Just that rare, golden thing. Quiet joy. Because healing isn't loud. It doesn't beg to be seen. It just arrives softly. And when it does, even the ghost of her can't touch it. It's been a year. A year since the slap never landed. Since the ring never stayed stolen. Since the truth, long buried under years of sibling rivalry and gaslit silences, finally rose to the surface and stayed there. She's gone. Moved states. Changed her name on socials. Started over like all villains do when their masks no longer work. But I didn't follow.
Didn't check. Didn't spy. Didn't care.
Because closure didn't come wrapped in her apology. It came from my refusal to need it. The court records remain sealed, but my peace? That's public. Every time a woman messages me with, "Your story gave me courage," I remember why I did it. Not for punishment, but for proof that you can set boundaries. You can say no. You can walk away from the people who raised you if they also wrecked you. This summer, Ethan and I renewed our vows. Just us. Barefoot on the sand, no drama, no performance. He slid the simple gold band back on my finger and whispered, "You were never hard to love. You were just surrounded by people who didn't know how." And in that moment I knew. She never stole my spotlight. She only helped me realize where it truly shines. Inside. Not in approval. Not in applause. In stillness. In safety. In self-respect. My sister once said, "This should have been me." And maybe, in a different world, one where envy didn't eat her whole, it could have been. But I stopped waiting for her to love me right. And I started loving myself like she never could. So now when people say, "You handled it with grace," I say, "No, I handled it with boundaries." Because grace doesn't mean tolerance. It means choosing peace, even when chaos comes in a familiar face. I've built a life where no one steals the mic from me ever again. Not even for a toast. Not even for a ring.